All right, buckle up, because today we're diving into a game that's about as subtle as a hand grenade in a china shop. We're talking Macho Women with Guns.
You know, for a game with such an outrageous title, it's surprising how relevant it still feels.
Absolutely, and we're going to break down exactly why. We've got the original rule books, those amazing signs and portents, magazines, and even did some digging around online. We're talking deep, deep dive here.
I'm excited to see what gems we unearth.
Me too, because Macho Women with Guns, or MWWG as the cool kids call it, is more than just a catchy name. It throws you right into a post-apocalyptic world run by, you guessed it, women. And everything's cranked up to 11.
It's not your typical post-apocalypse, though. Forget greedy realism. This world is called the Dang, and it's about as subtle as a pink mohawk.
Right. The game doesn't take itself too seriously, which is what makes it so great.
Exactly. Even the backstory is tongue-in-cheek. In the MGP 1400 rulebook, it says humanity's obsession with junk food and fad diets is what causes the apocalypse. Like we finally reach peak junk food critical mass and boom.
And of course, nobody listens to the warnings,
Well, there is this one guy, Greg Porter, the author, who tries to warn everyone about the Dang with this super serious pamphlet.
which obviously falls on deaf ears. Typical.
Exactly. So what does Greg do? He creates Macho Women with Guns. But here's where things get really interesting. This game wasn't just some random explosion of weirdness. It was a direct reflection of its time. We're talking 1988, the Cold War's dying down, but that hypermasculinity from action movies is everywhere.
Yeah, like those action heroes with biceps bigger than their heads.
Exactly. And MWWG takes all that, all those over-the-top masculine tropes and flips them on their head. It's like those old Mentos the Fresh Maker commercials. But instead of making things clean, they're making things feminine and fierce. You've got these exaggerated female archetypes, these tough-as-nails women in charge, and it becomes this really powerful, albeit hilarious way to critique the whole power dynamic of the era.
You know, it's amazing how much social commentary you can pack into a game about women with guns. But we'll get into that. First, let's talk about those women and those guns, because MWWG does not skimp on the over-the-top details. And the game really leans into the humor, like really leans in.
Oh, absolutely.
Like they take those cheesy action movie tropes and said, hold my beer, we're going to make this even more ridiculous.
Right, and it works so well because it's this brilliant satire.
Yeah. I mean, where else are you going to find a character creation system where you're seriously determining your character's cup size?
It's amazing, right?
You're rolling dice for bust size.
Yeah.
It's genius.
It's taking something that's usually objectified and making it a game mechanic, turning the tables completely.
Okay. And remember that formula for calculating a character's butt measurements. I mean,
Oh, how could I forget that word?
charisma plus constitution divided by dexterity multiplied by...
It's brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant.
It's so absurd, and yet it makes you think.
Exactly. You're laughing, but you're also like, wait a minute, why is this even a thing?
And that's the mark of good satire.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes you question those underlying assumptions.
And speaking of absurd, can we talk about the setting for a second?
Hmm.
The Mako-verse is like,
It's a wild ride, that's for sure.
they took every genre imaginable, threw it in a blender, hit frop, and somehow it works.
You've got your post-apocalyptic wasteland, but then you've also got fantasy creatures, Lovecraftian horrors, futuristic tech. It's a glorious mess.
It's like Mad Max meets Lord of the Rings with a dash of H.P. Lovecraft thrown in for good measure.
And a giant squirrel with laser beams on its head.
Don't forget the giant squirrel.
I mean, it shouldn't work, but it does.
And that's part of the game's charm.
Yeah.
Right? It's unapologetically over the top.
Exactly. It's embracing the ridiculousness of it all, and it's inviting you to come along for the ride.
And, you know, we have to remember the context here. This was the late 80s, a time when the RPG scene was all about pushing boundaries.
It was a time of experimentation, of trying new things, of seeing what stuck.
And Macho Women with Guns perfectly encapsulates that spirit, doesn't it?
It does. It's a game that throws genre conventions out the window and says, we're here to have fun and we're going to make you think while we're at it.
Because beneath all that humor, beneath the outrageous setting and the satirical character creation, there's actually a really well-designed game here.
There is. It's not just a one-trick pony.
You've got your combat system, your skills, your character progression. There are rules for everything.
And they're good rules. They're engaging. They're fun to play with.
And the character classes.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started on the character classes.
Oh, the character classes are amazing. They're so creative, so well thought out.
I'm still partial to the Renegade Nun myself.
A classic choice. Who doesn't love a shotgun-wielding nun fighting for justice?
But you've also got your business bitches, your librarian beauties. Each one is a subversion of those traditional female stereotypes.
Exactly. They're taking those stereotypes, those expectations, and turning them into something powerful.
It's like the game is saying, yeah, we're poking fun at these tropes, but we're also reclaiming them, you know?
Yeah.
We're twisting them into something empowering.
And that's a really important point. This isn't just a game about women with guns.
It's a game about empowerment, about taking control of your own narrative.
Exactly. It's about saying, we can be strong, we can be capable, and we can also be funny and outrageous.
Yeah.
It's about embracing all facets of what it means to be, well, whoever you want to be.
And sometimes that means strapping on a rocket launcher and facing down a giant squirrel.
Maybe with a chainsaw nun by your side.
You know, for a game with giant squirrels and butt measurement formulas, there's something kind of deep about this whole thing.
You hit the nail on the head. It's like Macho Women with Guns takes all those stereotypes, those expectations, and just flips the script. It's saying, hey, women don't fit in a box.
And it does it with a smile, which I think makes it even more powerful.
It's disarming, you're laughing, and then bam, it makes you think.
Exactly. Like, remember the librarian beauty?
Oh, absolutely. Takes that quiet, bookish woman stereotype and makes her a total badass.
Knowledge is power.
Right. It's rejecting that whole seen and not heard thing.
When I first read about rolling dice for cup size, I have to admit I laughed out loud.
It's pretty out there.
But then I realized it's like the game is in on the joke, you know?
It's reclaiming those tropes, turning them on their head.
And that's what makes it still relevant, even today.
Yeah.
Because aren't we still talking about representation and stereotypes and using humor to talk about serious stuff?
At a time.
So, folks at home, here's a question for you. Could a game like Macho Women with Guns work today? Or is it, like, stuck in the 80s?
That's the million-dollar question. I mean, the humor might not land for everyone.
It's definitely a product of its time.
But the ideas, empowerment, satire, challenging the status quo, those never get old.
Maybe it'll even inspire some new game designers out there.
Wouldn't that be something?
Finding creative ways to tackle these big topics and make you think, but also laugh while you're at it.
Because games can be more than just games, right? They can start conversations, open our minds.
So as we wrap up our Macho Women with Guns deep dive, tell me, what kind of macho woman would you be?
Would you be on the front lines, shotgun in hand like the Renegade nun?
Or maybe you're more of a librarian beauty, fighting with knowledge.
Whoever you'd be, embrace that power. Embrace the absurdity of it all.
And hey, maybe the world could use a few more giant weaponized squirrels while we're at it. Until next time.